Hi, I'm Kristin Davis, and I want to know, are you a Charlotte? Here we are. We are going to recap episode 111, first season, 11th episode. It's called The Drought, and it aired in August of 1998. And with us, we have Candace Bushnell, the creator of the column Sex and the City and the book Sex and the City, and of all of our characters way, way, way back. So she's going to go through this episode with me, which is super exciting. This episode was directed by Matthew Harrison. I'm sorry, I have no memory of you. I really apologize. And it was written by Michael Green and Michael Patrick King. Michael Patrick King, of course, we have a memory of. Michael Green, I'm sorry, I also don't remember you. You probably were in LA. But thank you for writing this episode. It's an enjoyable one. So this episode, and thank God Candace is here to help me with it. This episode contains this really funny thing that if you ever mention to Sarah Jessica Parker, she is still mortified over, which is the fart. And I remember at the time the stress about it. Like, how are we going to do it? Because they had to put it in a post, right? And she was like, don't make it too big. She was very stressed.
It's really loud. I mean, because I watched it a couple of times and, you know, I even remember when I first watched the episode for the first time and thinking, you know, if I farted with a guy, would I be that upset about it?
Uh-huh.
A lot of women would be.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think it's mortifying for a lot of women.
Uh-huh.
But I just felt like for me, it wouldn't be
that big a deal.
It wouldn't be that big a deal. Mm-hmm. And it would just be like, oh, it was a whatever.
Right.
And one would just move on.
Right.
But I went back and I watched it a couple of times and, you know, they made that fart really, really loud.
I mean,
so
I think they thought it had to be funny.
Yes.
Right.
Well, there was also another thing where it was, oh God, it's like when Steve
with
and Miranda
underwear?
finds, yes.
Yeah, that was super mortifying.
And Darren was like, Candace, there was a big discussion about how big to make that.
Mortifying.
Yeah.
No, I know. I mean, there were times when for the comedy, they went a little far, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. You know, what are you going to do? I mean, I also thought it was funny because Sarah Jessica was personally so mortified. Like she was personally so stressed and mortified. And again, if I think back to the time, we were doing things in the show that weren't being done on television and movies.
No, I had never seen that.
No. Right. So no wonder we were mortified as actresses. You know what I'm saying? We were like, we're doing stuff that no one else is doing. Like, are we going to be shunned? Like, are we going to be like hated by the industry? Like, what's going to happen? Like, is it so embarrassing as an actor? You know? Like we were dealing with all of these things at once. And of course, it's so adorable and endearing and her reaction is so cute. But I think the bigger issue, which is what the episode is titled, is the drought.
Yes.
So they don't have sex and then they don't have sex for like 2 or 3 more times that they're together, which really sends her spinning. And that I do understand. And then the greater conversation that it leads to, which I think is so great and relatable, is she actually being her real self with him? Or is she just trying to figure out what he wants and try to be like that as much as she can, like package herself, you know, in a way that is acceptable to him?
Yes.
And can she actually let go of that?
Yes. And of course, what Samantha says to her doesn't help. When Samantha says, you know, as a woman, you don't fart. Men don't want to see that. They want you to be a woman, which is, you know, it's a longer speech that she says, but that's pretty interesting.
It's really interesting. And do you think that is true of like the Samantha as you envisioned her, that she would say that? Because you said she was someone who knew everything.
Like that felt, even for Samantha, that felt a little out of character, her saying that.
A little traditional kind of.
A little traditional.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like Samantha would say something like, oh, darling, you know.
Right. Let them deal with it.
He should get used to that because if he does something naughty, there's going to be more farts to come or whatever.
Sure. I agree. It was odd. There are things that she says early on that you are kind of like, what? But I do think that was the finding of the character, right? So like we kind of, went like this a bit and then like solidified who we were. But that was one where I also was like, well, that's really interesting that she says that, you know?
Yes.
Like that's something that I would say. Charlotte would say.
Yes, it seems like something that Charlotte would have said.
Yeah, for sure. But they don't even seem to want to tell me about it, I think. Isn't that true?
Yes, Carrie doesn't want to tell you.
She says I couldn't even tell her.
Yes, exactly.
It's so sad. It's so sad that I'm so prim that Carrie can't even tell me this thing that she's like now spinning out about, But luckily Charlotte grew from there. But let's talk about the other ones. I have to get all my different... when I look back, one of the things that I want to ask you about breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, yes. That's so interesting because it's still in that episode.
I know it.
And it seemed like, I remember when Darren first showed me the pilot and we were in Nevis and I was doing a story on this new Four Seasons Hotel and he showed it to me. Yes. And he showed it to me and he was like really scared. And there were two versions.
Uh-huh.
And there was one version when I think Carrie's head was in like a bubble and it moved across the screen.
Yeah, he had some crazy ideas.
And it was like, okay, that was kind of weird. So he didn't go with that one.
Thank God.
But yes, that breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera, it's still in that episode, and I thought that they dropped that.
I know. There were episodes where it wasn't, and then it comes back.
And then it came back.
It's really interesting.
And Carrie talks to the camera too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she had to, and she didn't love it. And there was a kind of an ongoing discussion about it. But I think that the idea of having the people on the street, right?
Yes. Because that made it feel like they really were interviewed.
Right.
And
so I think that there was a lot of stress about letting that go because that was kind of one of the original ideas that would make it different and like relatable to New York City and interesting. And sometimes they had really extreme ideas, they'd have like the more extreme storyline in their mind or whatever. But then also we didn't get to know them. So that was a kind of an interesting, what would you call it? Like a conceit, that like, oh yes, they're just going to tell us this, but then we don't get to know them. But I think for her, Sarah Jessica, she's talked to me about and other people that it was hard because, we've got the voiceover, right? But then like when she, especially if she's by herself and she turns and talks to the camera, who is she talking to? Right? Like,
yes, exactly.
Who's in her apartment? It's really interesting because we're already in her head. Which was so powerful, especially for our writer. That was integral to, I think, everything that we learn about and know about her inside thinking and what she's, examining and how she's examining other people's relationships and what she thinks about them. That was really super useful. But yeah, every time I see an episode of the first season, I'm thinking that it's gone and then all of a sudden it's back.
Exactly.
So did you ever say anything to Darren about, how you felt about it or wanting it or not wanting it or?
I didn't because I felt like he's the TV guy.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that I've learned about TV is just, because we did Lipstick Jungle and the Carrie Diaries.
Right.
If something doesn't work, like everybody knows.
That's a good point.
It's, there very rarely is like, oh, this doesn't work and only a couple people know it. No,
right.
Everybody. So
I think that's true. I think that's true. I think the thing for us that was interesting was that HBO really had a lot of trust in Darren. They didn't say a lot. And that was really different from the networks that we had come from.
Yes.
And that was great.
And it's very different than the way it is today.
Of course.
So.
And we were we lucked out. in terms of who was in charge of HBO at the time and that we were there at the time that we were there, at the beginning. It was awesome.
Yes.
And I think that allowed us the freedom to find the things that we liked and the things that worked and the things that didn't, because they weren't really directing us one way or the other.
Right.
They were just letting us figure it out.
Right. And they weren't giving you she's not likable in this scene.
Right.
Which
Thank
is like,
God. Yeah, totally. Because that would have pretty much ruined everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too. I mean, you don't think about that so much in terms of, I also realized when I look back, I was not objective at all at the time. I was just in it. I was just in it and trying to pull it off. You know what I mean? Because it was so much a different world than anything that I knew. This kind of part of New York. I had lived in New York as a poor waitress slash actress. Very different than these women, right? So I didn't really know that much, and I didn't know about fashion. I didn't know about hardly any of it. So I was just learning as I went and trying to seem like I knew what I was doing. That's really my main focus, right? And now I look back on it and I think about the storylines in such a different and interesting way. But also I have so much respect for how they were pulled together and drawn. And it was very much of the time.
Yes.
And very different.
Yes.
Very, very different.
It really feels like, it reflects the way people really thought about sex and men and women.
Yep.
And that's actually a sign of, a great piece of work is that it does reflect the times that are in.
Absolutely.
That it's in. Like,
Absolutely.
Dickens reflects the time that was in.
Of course. Of course. And that's a good point. Because sometimes people want now to judge then.
Right.
But it's not really fair.
Yeah, no.
Because it was very, very different. I know that a lot of it seems accessible and similar, but like the surrounding social scene, the society's expectations and what we were coming from was very, very different.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it's hard for everyone on social media to remember that.
You know what Sarah Jessica Parker always says?
What?
Don't read the comments.
No, she's right. Of course, she's right. But I mean, like, people do whole TikToks about this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. It's
I know.
interesting. It's super interesting.
And sometimes I read it and I'm just like, you don't have a
It's true.
clue.
It's true. But I mean, it is like, it's also.
But at the same time, it's fantastic that people are so engaged.
That's what I was going to say. Right.
In it. And
the fact that it even interested them to put the TikToks out.
Yes.
Even though they might not understand why Carrie keeps trying with Mr. Big back then or whatever. I get it because it is interesting. And they're still like alive. The characters are still alive for these people, which is amazing. Yes. Amazing.
Yo, K-pop fans, it's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay, this is a fun thing. Miranda's getting her nails done, which I think is like so cute, with Carrie when she tells her that she has not had sex in 3 months and that this is terrible. I'm like, wow. 3 months is a long time. I mean, that's interesting.
Well,
tell us, Candace.
I think back then it would have been a long time.
Really? I don't think for myself it would have been, but I'm not them. I'm not them.
I think that back then that would have been a long time. Now, there are women who, they say like, I haven't had sex for 4 years.
Right.
And they're 32 years old, which
Right.
to me is like, you know what? Back then, you would have had to work really, really, really hard not to have sex for 4 years.
Which is super
I mean,
interesting.
it would have been kind of impossible. But people had a lot more sex back then than they do now. I mean, now there actually is a sex drought.
Wow.
This is for real.
Whoa.
But back then, people had sex a lot. So I do think like in 1998, 3 months, that would have been a long time.
Okay.
Because it was so easy to have sex back then.
Why?
Because there was a lot of interaction and you saw people out in person, in the wild. And it also feels like the population was younger then. And it actually was. There were more young people. There were more people in their 30s.
Got it.
And there also wasn't as much to do. Like now we have the phones and there's gaming and there's streaming and everybody is in their own
bubble.
Bubble of like, this is, my entertainment. But back then,
it was other people.
Yes, it was other people. You went out and
Did stuff.
And you did stuff and people wanted to have sex.
Amazing to think about.
It was very easy. I mean, now I have women come up to me and, attractive women in their 50s, and they'll say, like, I've been trying to have sex for the last year and I haven't found anyone to have sex with me.
Wow.
Which is like, this is really a different time.
It is really a different time, that's for sure. And my question would be, are they on those apps and whatnot? Do you think?
Probably.
Got it.
Somewhat. But
Interesting.
also in New York City, if you go out, you don't have to be on apps. I mean, I meet people when I'm out.
But I think you're good at this, Candace.
Well, not really.
Really? Come on.
And I'm on an app too.
Okay. Well,
Raya.
Raya. I've heard about Raya.
I know you should. I would say you should go on it, but
I do not want to go on it. I'm scared.
Nobody ever meets anybody in person on Raya.
No way. What?
This is true.
Explain.
Because everybody's so busy.
Oh.
Everybody is traveling.
Oh, got it.
Everybody they have like big jobs.
Right.
I met one guy and I thought, oh, wow, how did I get so lucky? Because this guy's like good looking. And I think he asked me out again. And I was like, no, I'm traveling. What about this week? And he said, I'm going away for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot.
Got it. I get it. This would be the people I know as well.
Yes,
I'm sure the people I know as well are on Raya. I just don't know because I'm not on there. But yeah, it's once you get to a certain level of success, it's hard to find the time.
Yes, it is.
But maybe it's our priorities also. Maybe we just don't have it as a priority because we're so busy and doing our business that is important to us, our job or whatever. Whereas back when we were younger, we didn't have these things to distract us. So we were like, yeah, let's try it out.
Yes, that's very true. And also there was something like today, it feels like people have to work every angle to make money to survive.
Do you think that's true?
It's like they have to be on social media.
Yeah.
They have to, there's just all kinds of things that people do to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And I look back on, I used to spend weekends just like hanging out with friends at, some house in the country.
Yeah.
It's like I never do that now.
Yeah.
And nobody I know does it. Everybody's, they're always like trying to catch up on something.
So sad.
I guess it is.
I think it is a little sad. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, let's think about that some more because I think you're right. Now, let's talk about them getting their nails done. Because I really love all of the Miranda Carrie scenes. I really had not really understood the through line of like them walking together and talking about things, them, going to the drugstore to get the pregnancy test in the last episode of the baby shower. And like they have such great, kind of deep conversations. And Miranda really kind of is the only one who totally kind of gets her and tells her things honestly. Do you feel that?
Yes. But see, I always think that part of that is because they've known each other in real life since.
You mean the actors?
Yes,
since they were young.
Actors.
I don't think that is why. I'll tell you why I don't think that is why. Because their relationship in life is very different than their relationship on camera.
Oh,
yeah.
See, I always thought that, they were really good friends and they'd known each other since.
I mean, and they are, and they were for sure. But it's just a very different vibe than what the Miranda Carrie vibe is. And the Miranda Carrie vibe was really present in season 1. Like from the get-go, it's super fascinating. Like whatever, I guess because they're different, but not so different as say Samantha and Charlotte, where we're like really, really different. And it's kind of hard for us to find a meeting ground in a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Because she would be very much one way and I would be very much the other way. But Carrie and Miranda are not that opposed. They're just slightly different takes on things. And maybe Miranda's going to say something to her like, you shouldn't have cheated with Big or whatever. So I'm giving an example. But, she might tell her like it is, whereas Charlotte probably wouldn't. She might just be like, oh, God, why'd she do that? But she's not going to say that. And then obviously Samantha would be like, oh, men cheat all the time. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Everyone has very distinct points of view. But because Miranda and Carrie are just kind of similar enough and different enough that their conversations really
resonate.
They resonate and they move things forward for each character in a really interesting way. I really love them. So here we are. They're getting the nails done. And not Charlotte, Miranda tells her, I haven't had sex in 3 months. And she's concerned. And then Carrie's saying.
Carrie has this look on her face like, what?
I know. It's really like an emergency. It's so crazy. But then Carrie is saying, and this is actually a really good point, that it's different not having someone to have sex with than being with someone and not having sex. Which I do understand, because when you're in the early part of a relationship, you're looking for signs and you're trying to figure things out. Also, partly because she keeps trying to talk to Big when she's had a few drinks and whatnot in the past episodes, and he doesn't really have much to say, right? He's aloof. So she's just busy kind of bobbing and weaving, trying to like get clues, about him, right? So then when he suddenly wants to not have sex, he says, I'm tired, and he rolls over. Like in a way, I would think like that's a kind of a different level of intimacy if you think about it.
Yes,
it
is. And also he's so churlish about it too. Like he's like, I'm tired.
He
not,
is.
And not like, oh, honey, I'm tired tonight. Let's do this tomorrow.
Right. Or not like, you look great, because she comes out in that little negligee. And
exactly.
It's adorable. He doesn't say like,
and
honey,
then he's
you look
watching
great.
the game.
Right. And he's like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
I think the way, like the style of communication was very like aloof. And I personally remember trying to get men to talk to me back then. Like you'd just be like, how do I do it? How do I get them to talk about their feelings? Like it was like, took up a lot of time to try to figure this out back then.
Yes.
Whereas now, I think you would decide like, do I like that person enough that I'm going to try to have this conversation, right? And then hopefully that person would have enough personal development, that they could have that conversation. And if they couldn't, you might be like, okay, I'm out.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Whereas
yes.
then we were just like, oh, we got to try a different way.
Exactly. And, now women, they want these guys to go to therapy.
Yeah. Oh, listen,
and
I'm all for it.
That would have been
shocking.
You would never even bring it up.
It's so true. That's a really excellent point, because now I do think it's like there are different groups of men. There are the men who are willing to work on themselves, and there are the men who aren't. And, you just have to know who you're dealing with and whether you're okay with that. Right? Whereas back then, we didn't really have choices.
No.
There just were men who weren't.
No.
And you had to figure out where could you live with it?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy to think about. Okay, I'm going to look at this again because I got to stay on my topics. I mean, listen, I've already asked you half those questions. Oh, this is such a great storyline. Samantha's at yoga with that hot yoga instructor.
Yes.
Siddhartha.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I did not remember this at all. I mean, that guy's great.
Yes, and he's celibate. Or he's not having...
Which is super interesting because it's like very sexy. And of course, Samantha, I'm going to get you the actor's name so that we can not just call him that guy. His name is Anthony DeSando.
Oh.
I know. I looked him up and he did do other things, but I mean, maybe we need to track him down. It's always interesting to find these actors, you know, and talk to them.
It is. Well, I saw that you had Andrea.
Yeah, Andrea Bocelli. It
Yes.
was so much fun.
Yes.
And he's lovely.
He is.
And he had nice things to say about you too, which was so nice.
Yes, he's
Such a sweetie.
he was a very nice guy.
He's a sweetie.
He is.
And
he is. In
people
fact, when I
really wanted
saw
to know
him on that show, I was like, you know what? I should look him up. He felt so much younger.
Oh my God,
at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But now I'm like, he's really just like 10 years younger.
Yeah,
Well, that's
who
not
cares?
a big deal.
Totally. He's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart. And I do also, I mean, he was so young and beautiful. Good God. And he's still very beautiful. And this guy reminded me also of like really good casting. You know, really good casting of that yoga teacher. And what I love, because I remember all the hot yoga, you know, power yoga classes all had hot men teachers in LA at least. And I'm sure in New York too, though I was too busy working to find out. But Samantha's there and she's doing her yoga and he's touching her. And those yoga classes were so filled with sexual energy. Like really, truly. And was this an actual storyline?
Not that I know of. I never have taken yoga.
What?
I have.
How's that possible?
Because I can't touch my toes. So, and everyone's always like, oh,
Candace.
you could get in, you know, if you keep working at it, you can. It's like, no, you don't understand.
Wow.
It's like, I am just not built that way.
Okay.
I can do Pilates.
Okay.
But
well, that's
yoga.
good then you're fine.
No.
Okay. Then you're fine.
So I've actually taken maybe 2 yoga classes in my life.
Okay.
But that was such a New York thing.
It was so good. And LA. It could have been LA at that time too. But I never met one who was celibate. Those yoga teachers were doing well. They were doing well with the ladies, let me tell you.
Yes.
But that guy, oh, his eyes, he was so great. And it was so interesting to see Samantha trying all of her Samantha ways and not being able to succeed. And then they go out to that lunch where he tells her that he's celibate and to think about all the sexual energy that he's saved up.
Yes.
Like it was fascinating.
Exactly.
But then she didn't know what to do.
No. And I think that, you know, that's, I mean, there is that, what is that? There is that technique that supposedly, tantric, yes. Supposedly Sting was all in favor of, you know,
I remember
that kind of,
I remember this. Yes.
you know,
You talk about
tantric-
hours and hours and hours, and you're just like, what?
And then you guys even did that episode with,
Oh my God.
with,
That was a crazy episode.
yes.
Oh Lord, that was a stressful episode. You guys were talking about the episode where there's this older couple and they're doing tantric sex, and then there's hand lotion. I'm not going to go into it, but hand lotion gets squirted at me or Miranda. I can't remember. Oh, it was so mortifying to watch.
And
we haven't gotten there yet.
Darren just like, he loved that he like found that couple.
Yeah.
I guess they were a real couple.
They were. I remember this. And also in this particular episode is when we watched through the windows. And I remember those people had to be hired willing to actually have sex. And we were not there at the time. And they were, I believe, porn actors. And I'm really sorry if they weren't, but I'm pretty sure that they were, because they basically said to them, you guys are really going to have sex. They didn't want to have to pretend or whatever. They wanted them to actually have sex, but we were not there. We didn't have to actually watch. We had to pretend that we were watching, and then we had to all turn our heads at the same time.
Right, because that moment when everybody turns their heads at the same time is such a classic Sex in the City moment, and that photograph is everywhere.
I know.
Of like that.
I know. It's cute.
So
it's cute.
It is.
I like it. I mean, we look really young and cute, and I don't know why my hair is parted in the middle, but other than that, it's good. And I do remember us just being kind of like, what? Like people are actually going to have sex? Like what? But then we weren't there and they made it private for them and all of that. And they knew when they were hired that was what they were going to do.
Right. And they also seemed to be really far away.
Right. Which worked.
Yes.
That worked.
Yo, K-pop fans, it's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hey everyone, I'm Jenna Bush Hager from The Today Show, and I'm excited to share my podcast, Open Book with Jenna. It is back for season 2. Each week, celebrities, experts, friends, and authors will share candid stories with me about their lives and new projects. Guests like Rebecca Yarros, Kristen Hanna, Ego Wodum, and more. Like a good book, you'll leave feeling inspired and entertained. Join me for my podcast, Open Book with Jenna. To start listening, just search Open Book with Jenna wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, this is when I get together with this dude. Okay, so I get together with this guy. His name is Kevin.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I didn't really remember much of this. Very interesting. So I get together with him. I take Carrie out to meet him. Turns out they already know each other and have hooked up in the past, so they don't use those words. But that's what the
and
sense
she
that you
says
get.
that he's a sex maniac, and that's one of the reasons why she's not with him.
Right. And I'm like, what? Because we haven't even had sex.
Yes.
And I think he's so polite. But then I'm intrigued, it seems. And I want to figure out what this is. So I kind of attack him somewhat in the cab. And I say, thanks for respecting my boundaries, which is such a Charlotte type of a line. And then he says, sure. But he also, the actor plays it really well because he's very even keeled. So you don't know what's coming. But like when you look back on it, he's very even keeled. Like he's not bothered by anything. Do you know what I mean? Then we get to the bedroom and you see me just working very, very hard below frame.
Right. And he says it's like a taffy pull.
Which is so embarrassing. And I remember being super stressed about how we were going to film it and trying. And this is one thing I wanted to know your thoughts on. One of the things I remember being concerned about the first season was that any sex scenes be something that was from the female perspective, that we were making the show for women to watch, not just for the male gaze.
Right.
And we didn't want to make the women uncomfortable. And I was really worried in that scene that the women were going to be uncomfortable. I look at it now, I think it's really funny and very relatable.
Yes.
But at the time, this was just not something that you saw.
No.
Especially not working and whatever. I mean, it was so many things that you didn't normally see.
Yes, but don't you feel like you've done so much more since then? I mean, even in... And just like that.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Candace. Yes, you're right. But you know what I think? And I was thinking about this earlier because I do think at the time, because we were brand new, the show, and your column was not, it's not like there were columns like yours all across the country. They weren't. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was new. There was a newness to women talking honestly about sex and what they wanted and what they weren't good at or what they were worried about or all of those things. But I don't think for myself, I can say I was not that evolved as a person, much less as an actor. Like I had insecurities. I had a lot of anxiety about my body. I was really scared to show my body all the time. Now, that's not necessarily something where I felt like, yes, I'm right. I felt like, no, I want to be more evolved, but then my insecurities would get in the way and I'd be really nervous. You know, we were always included in the decisions about what the storyline was, how we were going to film it, what we were going to wear. There was paperwork about it. You know, it was a very involved, and I always felt very respected, like from the show, from HBO, from everyone. You know, like it wasn't, I mean, there were a few moments maybe where things were not perfect, and then you could go to someone and say, hey, can you move, you know, the camera crew away? And they would do it. You know what I'm saying? We had power is really what I mean.
Right.
But we were coming from a place in the industry where we didn't have power as women, as actresses. So it was new, you know, and it was new to be showing these things. Like I had never seen an actress that I liked, like Sandra Bullock or I don't know, whoever was of the time, Julia Roberts. I had never seen them trying to give a hand job off camera and not succeeding. Like, do you know what I mean? Right?
Yes.
Like this is not something that was going on. So it was scary to do it, you know?
Well, I think the thing that was interesting about it and very real is that, you know, sex is messy.
It's true.
It doesn't always, you know, go, it isn't something out of like a romance novel.
No, that's true.
You know,
yeah.
These are human beings and in some ways, like that's sort of the more interesting part.
I think you're 100% right. I just didn't know it at the time.
You know?
Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't know it at the time. I felt like we're doing the scary thing. We don't know how people are going to react. We don't know if they're going to think less of us for doing it. Like what? I just remember my brain just being like, you know, which has to do a lot. I mean, I'm sure that it has to do a lot with how I was raised and shame about sex in general. You know what I'm saying? But we're playing these characters who are, you know, on the forefront of trying to change those things, which I totally agreed with, right? And I wanted to change those things, but that didn't mean it was always easy to do.
Yes, exactly. Well, then the guy turns out to be on Prozac.
Right, which makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And such a good storyline.
Yes. That was, I mean, that would have been really new then too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Prozac was a new thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, not everybody was taking it.
Yeah,
right?
it was great. And who knew anything about it?
Exactly.
We didn't know all of the side effects.
Exactly.
And it's perfect. And the fact that he was so even keeled. And then I'm like, well, you know, mightn't you go off it? And he's like, no. Why would I do that?
I know. He's like, I'm so happy. I have no stress.
Exactly. And then you see Charlotte go like, oh, this is a big deal. This is a deal breaker for me, which is really interesting. I like it so much. And I had not remembered that storyline at all. This is one where I'm like, what's going to happen? I have all these moments rewatch where I'm like, what's going to happen? In the threesome episode, I have a dream about the threesome and I thought I was going to kiss them. I was like, I don't even remember kissing those people. I know, but I didn't. Anyway, it's all very interesting. Okay, let's catch up on Carrie. She goes over when Big is watching the fight. And that made me sad. That scene just really brought me back to that time of like, you know, the men are doing their things and you're trying all your things and it's not working. And I really felt bad for Carrie.
Yes. And I feel like we've all been there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that just feels, you know, very real. But also as a woman back then, that would have been one of the most perplexing and disturbing moments because we felt like men should always want to have sex.
Yeah.
And then if they don't, then you start thinking,
what is wrong?
What's wrong? What's wrong with me?
Right.
And it's got to be something that's wrong with you.
Right.
It's not something that's wrong with them. So the interesting thing, I think, in this episode is that there's actually something wrong with the men.
Yeah.
Not with the women. The women are actually fine. Like Charlotte's fine, but the guy's taking Prozac. I don't remember, like, why was Mr. Big not having sex? He was like distracted.
We don't know.
We never found that out.
We don't know a lot about Mr. Big this whole first season. We really don't. We really don't. I mean, and this is so me. When I'm watching it, I think he's trying to take the relationship to the next level, and his next level is that it's not all about sex. but that could just mean
you know, they
being
do,
nice.
but I mean, that is supposedly like one of the signs when, you know, a relationship is getting more serious, when you don't have to have sex with the guy every night.
Right, which makes sense. You can just be.
Yes,
you can just be.
Yes.
So he's trying his own version, and this is me being generous towards him, right? He's trying his own version of just being himself in front of Carrie. And what Carrie comes to in the episode in her adorable apartment painting phase, which I also didn't remember. And the egg crew or the eggshell. Oh my God, it's so 90s. It's just killing me.
Well, actually, I think when he comes into the apartment at the end, I was like, wow, like Mr. Big is really... He's really cool in this scene. Like for some, I was like,
it was different.
His acting's really good.
Yes.
Here.
No, it was the first time I liked him. Honestly, I think it was the first time I liked him.
Yes. I mean, it was kind of like wry and
nice. He was a little nicer.
Yes, exactly.
And he says like, I like it. And she's like, it's a mess. And he's like, no, I like it here. And you're like, thank God.
Yes, exactly. Right? It's like he finally likes something.
Right. And
about
it's her
Carrie.
home, which is really nice.
Yes.
Because also you realize she has not invited him over that whole time.
Yes.
Interesting.
And you know, he's like, finally I get to come over. And he's very cool. I agree with you. That's like one of the first times that we really like him.
100%. And part of the reason we like him is because she's kind of shut down because she's been spinning out about them not having sex and him kind of like manhandling her off of him when she's trying to kiss him, which is just like painful to watch, right? And she thinks it's because of the, you know, thing that happened in the bed at the beginning that we won't mention because I'm, you know, Charlotte, but it's not. It's because, you know, he thinks that's funny. Oh, we left out that he puts that whoopee cushion under her. Oof.
Yes, but I think that kind of like when I first saw that scene, because I'd forgotten about the whoopee cushion, I was like, wait, did she fart again? Because somehow he was very sneaky. Cushion
he was super
very
sneaky
quickly.
Yep.
But you see, like she's sitting kind of gingerly the first time.
Yep.
And then. So I wondered if that whoopee cushion was there the whole time.
No, he gets it out and does it. He asks her to get him sauce, and she says, "Sure, I'll get it." She looks at him like, "You never usually ask me to do stuff like that." And she goes to get it. He gets her up out of that chair to put that whoopee cushion. It's a plan, okay?
Yes.
He's got a plan. I would have been mad.
See, I thought it broke the ice.
Well, I think that's what you were saying you probably would have done if you had been in Carrie's situation was make a joke. Which I think is a good call, right? But obviously, I'm not a Carrie in that way or whatever. Anyway, let's get back to them. So I love that scene also, but I also love the scene where Miranda comes over to help paint and basically has the conversation with her about how she is enough and she should just be herself with him.
Yes.
And that was that's
very touching. And,
and it's a good follow through of like how their relationship, the Miranda-Carrie relationship goes. Because that is incredible advice. This is the advice she needs.
Yes.
She is enough. You know, she should show him her messy self, you know? And she really has when she's had the drinks and gone over there and kind of freaked out, as she calls it. She really has shown him some of it, but she should just own it, is what Miranda's saying.
Yes. And it's interesting because, you know, that's the kind of advice that we give to women all the time now.
Good point.
We always say you should be yourself and you are enough.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that was, 25 years ago. But now that's advice that we give women all the time.
Which is great.
Be yourself. Yes.
I don't think anyone ever said that to me back then.
No.
And I don't think anyone ever said you are enough. I don't even think they said that.
No.
They were just like, be thinner.
Exactly.
Yo, K-pop fans, it's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you something epic. Introducing the K Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music reviews, exclusive interviews, and deep dives into the industry like never before. From producers and choreographers to idols and trainees, we're bringing you the real stories behind the music that you love. And yeah, we're keeping it 100, discussing everything from comebacks and concepts to the mental health side of the business. Because K-pop isn't just a genre, it's a whole world, and we're exploring every corner of it. And here's the best part. Fans get to call in, drop opinions, and even join us live at events. You never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K Factor on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Are you ready? Let's go.
Poor Samantha is, interestingly, do you remember that scene of her alone where she's going to masturbate because she's been frustrated by this yoga teacher, but then she doesn't? It was also really kind of interesting.
I'm trying to, no, I kind of don't, that must have been a very short scene.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was more interesting because I don't remember any other time that Samantha couldn't somehow pleasure herself or find some way or some person or whatever. It's interesting.
Yes.
Samantha's interesting in the beginning, kind of like this way, that way, she's there and she's powerful, which I think is one of the really, really great parts of Samantha is the power, the kind of self-possession that she has and had and whatnot, will always have. But like, she's kind of interestingly, like, do you remember early on when we go out and she gets drunk and I take her home to my apartment, she has sex with my doorman?
Yes, that is.
Oh,
no, that's
tell
just,
us.
No, I was just going to say that is so the kind of thing that would happen in New York,
Right.
At a certain,
For
years
sure.
ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I feel like that's in
Tell
a
us
lot
the
of ways
truth,
a true
Candace.
story.
A true story from yourself. Is that why you're not answering right now?
Well, no, I wouldn't do that.
No? Okay.
But I feel like I know people who would do that.
Got it. I mean,
Yeah.
look, he was an adorable
It's a very
doorman.
Samantha.
I get
it's
it.
a very, very Samantha thing to do.
But the funny thing was that she was drunk and Charlotte takes her home to take care of her. That was the part that
Yes.
threw me off. The doorman part made total sense. But like that I would have to caretake Samantha and bring her home to my couch. Like how crazy. You know what I mean? She's so, in charge of everything. But I mean, I like that we see these different sides of her, in the beginning.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I like the end of that episode when she's in the yoga class and she says
Oh
to
my
that
God.
one guy,
So hysterical.
and
I know.
he's like, "What?"
I know. Well, the first guy she asks is Travis, who's our prop guy.
Oh,
Yes, that was Travis. I was like, what is Travis? Travis works now on the Gilded Age with Cynthia. He's like a
that's so
fifth
funny.
generation prop master.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he and his sister were our props department. And man, let me tell you, that guy kept us together for the entire show. Because think about the props in the show. We
Yes.
had props out the wazoo. There were props everywhere.
Yes.
Eating, drinking, bags, Sarah Jessica loves props, right? Travis was always there. Like Travis would hide, like if we had to pick something up or put something down, but we couldn't get a piece of furniture in because the camera, Travis's hand would just be down here, just ready. And you just put it in Travis's hand and pretend like, and he'd whisk it away. I mean, like so many, he was so integral to everything. That was Travis, the first person she asked.
Oh, that's so funny.
Isn't that funny? I don't know
He's
how.
actually a very good actor.
I know, he was great. He's the one who says no. And then the one who says yes, I think that was an actor. But yeah, that was pretty funny and a good
Yes.
ending. That was a good ending for Samantha, for sure. And then I think we end for the whole episode on the big Carrie, kind of coming together in a new way in the
Yes.
apartment, which is so adorable. And I wanted to ask you an apartment question because I have a lot of questions about Carrie's apartment. Do you remember in the pilot, she lives over a coffee shop with a neon sign?
Yes.
Is that accurate to you?
Well, I lived on the Upper East Side.
Right. Which she does in the beginning.
And which she does in the beginning. But no, the coffee shop, I think that was very Darren.
Okay.
He wanted, that. And then
Got it.
I think, don't they meet in a coffee shop? Do they?
Us, the girls?
Yes.
We do, but we don't have the coffee shop set yet. We were meeting in this really crazy kind of ick restaurant, no offense, in Long Island City.
Oh.
That didn't last
Right.
long because it was
Right.
bad.
Wasn't right.
Yeah, so eventually we build the coffee shop set which then
Yes.
became the central, foursome scene, right? But Carrie, the thing that's
But yes,
confusing,
she
like, did you write in a coffee shop? Like, what is
No.
the coffee shop?
No, I
so that's
think
just something
that
Darren
I feel like Darren felt that was very New York.
Got it. Okay.
And yes, but
Okay.
no, I actually lived in a doorman building when I was writing
Amazing.
Sex in the City.
Got
on
it. Okay.
East
So
79th
this is
Street.
not
So
based on you. Okay.
So
but she's
that
in this,
is-
I think she says 76,
yes,
which is strange. But then, like, when did we move to the village? I don't
that
know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Well, let's just talk about Carrie's apartment because in that episode, this episode 11,
Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute. Her apartment looks freaking huge.
You think?
Because
Well,
for some
compared to the
reason,
pilot,
I
yeah.
always thought
Yeah.
that her apartment was kind of the bedroom and the closet. But in
It is.
that episode,
Yeah.
she's got this big kitchen. She's painting those cabinets.
Right. No, those cabinets were like,
And there's a living room.
well, so it was one room. It was like a circle, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you'd come in the door here, there were books here, and the kitchen was here. It's a kitchenette, I think would be the proper term. And the cabinets were set back a little bit, right? So there is like a little, like when she's in that little area painting that one cabinet, that's realistic to the apartment set that we've had forever.
Right.
And then you would come back out, like in the pilot, which I wonder where we filmed that. We have Chinese food. Do you remember? All the girls are at her house and we have Chinese food. Maybe we did have the set. I don't know if we had the set built. But so then you would come out and she had that kind of ugly chaise lounge that was big and square, like rectangle square with kind of like turquoise-ish fabric on it. And that was kind of floating in the middle. Then there was a coffee table. Then the bed's right there. So there's no wall or anything. The bed's, it's not that big.
But somehow in that episode, it felt like there was some kind of separation. And I just was thinking like, God,
how did it grow?
Bigger than
Yeah.
I remember it being.
I know what you
and
mean.
of course, that made me jealous. Because that's New York City.
That's funny. That's
Nobody
funny.
ever has a big enough apartment.
Well, it's true. And in the beginning, we definitely didn't because when we're in Charlotte's, it's like that's when I had two flats, two white walls.
Yes.
That we would just move whichever way had to be moved, which was really entertaining. But I do think with Carrie's, I think what happened was they got a crane to swoop down. So you're seeing it in a slightly different way than you have previously. Because I think straight on, they like to shoot her straight on through the window when she's typing, right? So this was the first time I think there had been kind of like a cool crane shot. But in the pilot, or maybe the first episode, probably the pilot, there was also this is when the neon signs outside the window.
Yes.
You know, she looks like she has literally one room that's as big as the area that you and I are talking. And there's like an empty champagne bottle. There are clothes everywhere. Like she's like 18 years old. You know what I mean? Like it is a mess. A mess to the point where I was like, I do not think that is how Candace was living when she was writing that column. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a lot.
Well, I was sleeping on a fold-out couch when I was writing that column.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Maybe that's what Darren was basing it on.
And it probably was pretty messy too.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And I lived in this apartment with a friend and I had, it was really like our office / but I lived there. So I slept on a fold-out couch.
Wow.
And then there was a little kitchen and I put my desk in the window in the kitchen.
Oh.
And so that kind of looked out on an air shaft. And so that was, so I was always like looking out. It was a partial air shaft.
Got it. So Darren
So it was
kind
like a
of
brown
took
wall
that and made it a little better.
Then there was like
okay.
skyline. But
so he kind of, it's like he took that and made it a little more cinematic.
Yes.
In the beginning, and then it maybe grew once we built the set.
Yes.
That's,
I would say so.
Yeah. And then the closet for Carrie's was just like a row that went to the bathroom. It was just the hallway that went to the bathroom. So they just had hanging and shelves there. So it wasn't, there weren't really that many walls. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of a glorified studio.
Right. Yes.
Which is what it Yeah, was supposed to be, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you for being with us, Candace. It's fun, right?
It's so much fun, and you're brilliant at this.
Thank you.
Yo, K-pop fans, are you ready? It's your boy Bomhan, and I'm bringing you the K-Factor, the podcast that takes you straight into the heart of K-pop. We're talking music, idols, exclusive interviews, and even the real behind-the-scenes K-pop stories. Plus, you, the fans, you're part of the show. And you can get a chance to jump in, share your opinions, and be part of the conversation like never before. And trust me, you never know where we might pop up next. So listen to the K-Factor starting on April 16 on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. This isn't just a podcast. It's a K-pop experience. Are you in? Let's go.